The year is currently 2025, and for once, I think we can all agree that Protoss is absolutely kicking our butts in this new balance patch of StarCraft. Protoss has been killing against Zerg, doing really well against Terran too, and I'd wager they're also doing pretty good against Protoss as well. But amidst all that craziness, I have found a sort of maybe like build slash play style that's been working for me when it comes to that TVP matchup. And for those wondering, why is Protoss so strong right now? Sentry, man, hallucinated, Phoenix Scout, Sentry first openers are insane. More so because obviously they don't do any direct. It doesn't do any direct damage. But it's very hard to play aggressive openers because you get scouted pretty much instantly. And so there have been games that I've played where I've gone for a double gas opener, trying to be as aggressive as possible. And then they just scout everything, perfect reaction to everything, and I'm just cooked. But this opener is a very standard opener that I've been playing recently that has been helping a lot. And I'm going to explain more of how it matches up with the meta as we go. But it's pretty much going to be a 1-1-1. Of course, 1-1-1. Of course, guys, that's what we do here. 1-1-1. One mine drop. You're going to have a Hellion for scouting, as well as a Reaper. You're going to go for Raven, auto turret harass, and you're going to have 5 barracks on 2 bases. It doesn't have to be an all-in. You can add a 3rd command center as the game goes on. Or you can make it all-in if you'd like, and I'll explain why that's important later on. But for now, as you can see, if this is actually a really good. This is actually a really easy build to adopt if you're already like Diamond and Masters, because you're already familiar with 1-1 builds anyway. And so this is pretty smooth. Like, I'm gonna give you guys like simple sort of like guidelines, I suppose. How to actually maybe use the units, and when to use the units, and then when to put down certain buildings. So for example, your 4th and 5th barracks. One thing to note, if you're not doing this already, you'll see me build this factory pretty soon here, and where I build it is actually extremely important. So if you're playing on these maps, you're struggling against Blink Stalker aggression, highly advised that you build your buildings the way I do in this game by lining them up here, and you can cover some ground there. Behind my Reaper, I'm going to go 2 Marines. I always do this mostly because of this first Adept situation. So if somebody like Chronos the Adept and sends it straight across the map, I like to have those 2 Marines plus a Reaper potentially to defend that. Sometimes what happens is the 2 Marines are fighting the Adept as the bunker is nearly done, so then you kind of just fill the bunker as needed once it's taking like a hit. So your Marine might take a little bit of damage, but the bunker will be done by then, and then you can put them in there so they don't die. While the factory is building, about halfway through the factory, we'll go ahead and build our refinery here. And then obviously after the factory starts or finishes, you'll build a Hellion, and then you'll build a star for 2 Marines from this barracks, from this reactor finishes. So as you can see, like I said earlier, this is pretty basic 1-1-1. And if you're already in Diamond to Masters, perfect, because you're already, like, this is easy to adopt because you already do stuff like this. Maybe. He's going to be really annoying with the Adept, and that's okay. This is a Korean Protoss that I played on the NA server, so I have ping advantage for once. Usually I'm on Europe when I'm making these videos or playing these games. So there's my Hellion. Now the Hellion pops out. The Widow Mine's going to be out as well. And then here, now with my Reaper and Hellion, I can scout. And so now I'm going to talk about how we want to use these units. But first, let me kill that damn Adept. And then, as you can see, I'll start my medevac here as soon as I can. There you go. So slight delay there, but I was dealing with that Adept. Now, with your Reaper Hellion, there's a couple of ways we want to use these units. This part is extremely important, okay? Obviously, it can be very hard to scout against Protoss. Things like this, for example, the cliff. And this particular cliff, you could technically Reaper jump it with a grenade if you want to try that. But you honestly don't need to do that either. And then we have the Hellion to scout some more. So what you're looking for here are 2 things. How many gateways they have? Well, maybe 3 things. How many gateways they have? Potential tech, and then the 3rd base. Okay, so 3rd base timing is also going to tell you a lot here. When I poke in here, I want to check this wall. Now, obviously, I wasn't able to check that wall. I do know there is 1 gateway there, and I can infer that there's 1 more gateway in the main. Pretty simple, right? Okay, so we know there's at least 2 gateways. There's a Cybernetics core, and there's 3 Stalkers. Well, stalkers are pretty expensive, so most people aren't going to be amassing stalkers, you know, if they go Stargate, because then you're trying to build phoenixes and maybe trying to go into Colossus at the same time. So it doesn't, or another tech structure. So it doesn't really make sense to be building stalkers as well as phoenixes. A lot of gas income that you would need, or maybe you want more mineral income. And then after this, I might want to look for a third. Okay, so my Hellions. Okay, obviously there's no third here. I'm gonna be swinging around this side because you might have this third. Okay, now the earlier of a third that Protoss takes, the more, or how do I say this? The earlier third means there's less gateways, so or less tech. So for example, if this person is playing 2-gate Robo Blink, they're opting for a third around this time, which is 4:15, which is exactly when he starts his third. So when I see this, I can infer again that this is most likely some sort of maybe a macro-based opener. So 2 gateways for sure. I doubt 3 gateways. Maybe the third one started now. And they're not trying to pump out a lot of stalkers, right? Whereas here, maybe if I see a later third, I might want to be more cautious. I might opt for more siege tank production or something like that. So those are things that you want to keep in mind. Once I've confirmed the third, though, I do want to confirm the tech as much as I can. Again, just seeing the amount of stalkers and seeing that third base timing, I can pretty much infer that there is a third. Or sorry, that this is like a Twilight opener. So if you're ever able to get that Reaper in there with a grenade jump, it's great. It really gets the scout. It gets like, you can't do it on all maps, but obviously it helps a lot. And then yeah, I'm kind of just like messing around with that. So at this point here, and we're gonna rewind this, right, because we focus on the scouting part of it. So let's talk about the build part of this. Okay, so I'm gonna rewind a little bit more. Here we go. Okay, so we go 1 Widow Mine, Medevac. Okay, so as I'm scouting that, as you see on the mini map, I'm doing that. I have a second barrack started here around 4:10, and then I'll drop another one when the Medevac comes out. And now I have a tech lab on the starport. I'm going to go for engineering bay and then a third gas, and then of course you want to be building depots still as well. So for example, I would have delayed my depot for an eBay. I don't want to do that because I don't want to get supply blocked, so I'd rather build the engineering bay slightly later. There you go, and then there's the gas. You're going to build 1 Raven, and then the amount of siege tanks you build is dependent on how aggressive you're being with stalkers. This is where it's important to scout, because you don't actually, like, I think ideally the consensus here is that you don't want to build too many siege tanks, and you definitely don't want to build more than 2 siege tanks. You know, even if somebody is playing Colossus, somebody who's very good will be cranking out Zealots as well as Colossus. So then, yeah, you might have tanks that can kill Colossus, but you're not going to have tanks to kill Zealots, right? Because that's not going to work out that way. So, and if you notice here, it actually lines up pretty nicely, because when his factory finishes, I can swap it with that, or that tank finishes, I can swap the tech lab with that barrack that's almost done. Now here, I can build a reactor with the factory, and then everything kind of lines up a little bit better. But if I need to build more siege tanks, that's also okay. At that point, I would recommend you just build the extra tech. You build a tech lab on this barracks, and then you swap this barracks with the Raven tech lab. You know, if you need to be building that many siege tanks, that kind of part is really something you'll have to scout. So again, just to kind of reiterate, this can keep building siege tanks. This can build its own tech lab, and then when this Raven's done, you can swap these two. Okay. So that's just important, again, especially against 4-gate blink. I don't know how common that is. I don't think it's as common in lower levels, but if you need to produce more siege tanks for whatever reason, that's entirely okay. That's how you would adapt this build. Now here I'm still scouting because I'm just like being annoying. I have this Widow Mine drop. The Widow Mine drop you don't need to send right away. Okay, so this Widow Mine drop, it's okay if it sits in the airspace, and you'll see me do that for a while as well. Here I'll swap. You see this is going to line up a bit better. I'm going to start +1. Usually I do stim +1. For some reason, I think I just like wasn't thinking. I started combat shields here first. Oh wait, this must be a different game then. Perfect, I'm actually smart, I did it. And then I'll swap these two. And then I'll do that. Here I see the observer. So my Raven will stay around to try to get it. I tried to deny some scouting. And then once I swap this, and I start the combat. Obviously I have enough money to start it, I just haven't started it yet. I add these 2 barracks. Okay, so your 4th and 5th barracks, you want to add about 530. And you want it to be towards the back of your base, because you want to minimize the chances they have of scouting it. Sorry, coffee break. So that way they can't go out of their way to maybe produce so many units. Now, let's just got it with the observer, right? because you want them to be a little bit more greedy, so you can catch them off guard with supply. Now, obviously, that's hard if they go Sentry Scout, so that's the disclaimer there. Okay, so just keep that in mind. This reactor is a little bit late, so I do make some mistakes here. And then here I'm going to send my Raven now. I always send the Raven to auto turret harass. This is going to be another one of those really important segments of this video, okay? You, against Protoss early game, it is pretty important that you try to get some early game damage done as much as possible, okay? Obviously, I did not research Matrix, so I'm not going to use the, even if there were Colossus. So even if there were Colossus, I won't go out of my way to get Matrix. It also delays a lot of things too. I mean, really the only scenario I think getting Matrix is ideal is against maybe a Robo first or something like that. But beyond that, it's not really an upgrade anyone gets. So I'm going to send my Raven to harass. Okay, and then if for whatever reason my Raven can't harass, I'll send it back with my army as I'm moving across the map, which you'll actually see in this game. The other thing to know, and here I passed the Warp Prism by the way, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. The other thing is, if you do struggle like F2ing and you're just like not capable of doing something like that, then it's okay to keep the Raven with your army. But do try to keep that mine drop up here, because I love using this mine drop when I'm moving across the map. And, you know, they see me moving across the map because I got observers, and then bam, the my drop comes in. And their stalkers are like out of position or something like that. And here I'm just being very annoying with my units. Obviously you saw my Raven, and I saw the Prism. So I know that this is potential. And so I'll end up looking. You see, I start looking, and then I'm like, oh shit. Okay, because I know there's gonna be stalkers here. Oh, so here add-ons are up to you. If you want to make it like very all in, you don't have to build add-ons and just have like a strong, like just crank out Marines and kind of go for it kind of thing. Or you can wait a little bit, slap on the add-ons, and then just build a third. I do 2 of those different versions. And if you've made it this far into the video, I know we're 12 minutes in. I have a bunch of replay examples of me doing this build that you can check out on my Ko-fi page, which is linked down below. Viewing those replays is actually free, so you'll be able to view those replays and then download them and use that. That's kind of like my thanks for watching this video this long. And then, of course, you can check out the page. And then if you want to support, simple $5 a month is enough, and then you can get access to all the stuff I upload there. Quick sellout. So anyway, so you can check out the replays there. So you see me do different examples of this. The other thing is the Warp Prism. So let's talk about Warp Prism, okay? Because that's a big one. That is a big one. So obviously in this example, I had seen the Warp Prism already, so I opt for this because I know for sure it's there, right? So I have 2 Widow Mines in a missile turret here. This is great. Even if you don't scout it, building 1 missile turret and 1 Widow and burrowing one Widow Mine there is good enough to kill it. All you need is a turret to shoot the Prism 1 time, and then the Widow Mine to hit it, and it'll kill it. Obviously, I have to know that it's coming from the side of the main. So that's why, you know, I put it there, but it's possible that it goes to the natural. So just keep that in mind. The other thing I like to do is build 2 Vikings after 2 medevacs. So if I don't kill the Prism, I'll follow up with 2 Vikings after the first 2 medevacs, and I'll use those 2 Vikings to deny the Prism. But all of that aside, one thing that is good in this scenario is that if you have 5 racks production, it is pretty easy to hold the Zealot run by. Normally, when you have 3 barracks, you just can't produce enough units. And if it comes as soon as you move out, you have no units, right? So it becomes very tricky to defend if they get a full warp in of like 8 Zealots in your main. But with 5 barracks production, it's much easier. Again, you do have to juggle the micro of like dealing with that in your main while maybe moving across the map. And my advice there is to try to only deal with one of those 2 things at once. So if you're not even halfway across the map yet, I would just halt the army and then focus on defending the Prism in your main. So don't try to do too many things at once. But with 5 racks, it is a lot easier. So if you struggle against that Prism stuff when you move out, this build is also great for that. So here I said my Widow Mine drop. I saw all the Stalkers were out of position, right? I saw the Stalkers were at my Raven. That's where I pounced, jump in with the Widow Mine drop. Even when people know the Widow Mine drop is there, this still works, by the way. This is why I always do it. Here I have the Viking on the way, because as I said, I've played the scenario many times, so I know. Here he's got the Zealot. He's got 4 Zealots in there, and then there are how many gateways? There are 8 gateways. So he could drop a huge Zealot warp in my main. But there you go. Boom. And I was even rallying my units already to that corner to make it even easier to defend that, okay? Here I come in with, and now I bring my Raven with me instead of using the auto turrets. I was some crazy multitasking. This part you don't have to do. But the Raven here is going to be big, right? So he has +1 attack. I have a decently sized army. Oops, sorry. And because I have 5 barracks production, I'm building so many units at the same time. Widow mines, medevacs, 6 marines at a time. I land my Raven shots there perfectly. I have +1 attack, and there's no armor upgrades here, so these are going to die really fast. But the main thing here is that I have a lot of units, right? This person does not have a 4th on the way. This person has about 40 workers. Now I have killed like 15 workers, so technically they'd be at 60 at probes and stuff like that. And this is sort of the last important thing of this build and of this TVP kind of meta situation right now, okay? If Protoss players scout you're playing this way, they will delay their 4th, okay, most of the time. If they don't respect it, / you execute this incorrectly, it's possible they do take a 4th and still kick your ass. But normally most Protoss players, and I've done this building against high-level Protoss players as well, so this isn't like I'm playing like some random 5.8k Protoss from Korea. I'm playing like 6k, mid 6k, like 6.4k EU Protoss players, and I'm doing this build, okay? And something that a lot of people do is they don't take the 4th, okay? So they will delay the 4th. Now, that's actually pretty good for you because if right now, or even as I moved out, I decided to just drop down a 3rd base instead of making this a bit all-in, then I have all this army supply that I can utilize to deny their 4th base while I take my 3rd. And that's actually pretty good, okay? Because our bio army is going to scale, right? But maybe this gateway-based army isn't as good until they're able to add on Colossus and the Storm and stuff like that. And it's just very hard to afford that on 3-base economy, okay? So this is why this is great. So if you find yourself in a situation where, man, their army is huge, but they don't have a 4th base, you don't need to force a fight, okay? Leave some spotters to view the 4th. Make sure you see when they take it. But you can still transition behind this. You can still build your own 3rd. You can still build a Ghost Academy. You can resume SCV production. Go for a 2-2, whatever, all that good stuff. But as long as you don't just yeet your army into its death, if you find yourself in a situation like that, then you'll be fine. Okay, and in that replay folder that I talked about earlier, I have examples of that exact scenario. Okay, and what you see this game is, this trade, maybe not too bad for me, right? And I've killed a lot of workers, but he just has a lot of gateways, and bam, look at this, 8 Zelds back on the menu again. He's not probing, there's no upgrades on the way, this person isn't building a 4th, right? This is like pretty all-in. And so the nice thing about this opener is that if I'm playing 3 racks, 3 CC, it's very hard to produce enough units to hold on to something like this. But because I have the 5 barracks, I can produce enough units to keep up with the fact that my opponent has 8 gateways. Okay, so that's why I'm opting for this. And that Widow Mine drop again, still being annoying. If you can keep that alive, fantastic. Same thing with the Raven. Again, that's probably more of a higher level thing. So as you get better, you can adopt. But what you see here is, yeah, he's all-inning me, but my supply is still higher. Like I still have bio. I got a lot of bio. I'm gonna have 1 armor nearly done. And I even added a Ghost Academy because I anticipated this exact situation happening because I saw that there was no 4th base, and because I know that Ghost EMP is going to be good in this scenario to weaken his army. Might as well get it, right? He has no 4th, no problem. I'm like doing Viking harass behind this, so yeah. But this is ideal TVP, mixing that harassment as consistent as you can, and then yeah, this opener is great, man. I've won a lot of games with it. It's been going really well for me. You'll see in the replay folders as well that I have won some games where I go 3 barracks, 3 CC, so you can see what that's like. But this is why I love it. It's been really good against ladder Protoss specifically, and I don't think it's something that's too hard to pull off. All right, with all that being said, I do have another TVP video of something else that I've been doing recently that I'll do later. But for now, if you're struggling in TVP in 2025, I think this opener is great. It's working really well for me. I'm sure there's like other things out there. But it's just, like I said, it's very hard to get gimmicks to work at the higher levels with the Sentry Scout. So that's why I'm not really like, this is how you kill Protoss on 1 base or something like that. Because it's pretty hard and I'm not going to scam you guys. But yeah, try this opener out. Let me know how it is. And if you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments. Again, the Ko-fi link is in the description. If you watch this video this far, click on it. You might have to scroll down like 2 posts or whatever on the feed, but then you'll see the replay pack. And like I said, you're able to view that. It's entirely free if you made it this far. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks for watching, guys.